Hello and welcome to SEC Basketball Reaction. I am your host, Chris Lee, joined by Blake Lovell. The SEC's got another team in the Sweet 16. Congratulations to the Florida Gators, 77-75 winners over two-time defending national champion Connecticut. Blake, they say guards win games in March. Is that true?
Well, it's true. I'll tell you what else wins games in March: making your free throws. But Florida opted not to necessarily go that route for this game. We'll talk about that in a minute. But they made it hard on themselves a little bit down the stretch because, again, there were a couple of times where you felt like they could have sort of sealed it. Didn't happen. But when it mattered, who stepped up? Well, you had a couple guys step up. That trio goes for, 56 points, I think they combined in this game. Walter Clayton, 23. Elijah Martin, 18. Will Richard, 15. They were the difference in this one. They hit shots down the stretch. UConn didn't hit shots. And UConn had a 4-plus minute stretch without scoring or made field goal, whatever it was, towards the end of the game there. And so that was the difference. I mean, there's no question because it felt like, UConn was up 6, I think, with, I don't remember the exact timing on that, but at that point, I'm like, I don't know if Florida's going to be able to make a run because it seemed like during that stretch, Florida would get fouled. They go to the free throw line. They'd miss at least one of them. And you're just sitting there thinking, uh-oh. Because I said, Chris, the one thing I said, there is really nothing we've been able to pick holes in with Florida. They have been so good over the last little while. But I mentioned the one thing that worried me about them was just the free throw shooting. That was the only percentage thing that you could look at and say, they don't always value the free throw line. They came into this game 72%, which is 179th nationally. That's going to go down a little bit after this game. But they had a couple of those games where it's like, this would have been a little bit easier if you just made your free throws. So I say all that to tell you this, and I'll turn it to you. One thing I think we all agreed on was this may be the toughest game they played on their way to the Final Four. And I feel like it was just set up that way. UConn 13-0 in the last 3 tournaments heading into this game. And you just thought that this was going to be a grind for Florida. And it was, were they going to be able to make enough plays to rally from a deficit they had? And to me, that adversity, overcoming it, I'm telling you, I think this may be where, okay, exhale, get this out of the way. From here on, let's see if Florida is just going to, start doing what they've been doing the past month or so.
I look at this as, you mentioned the free throw shooting. UConn is a really good team, but UConn has been foul-plagued all year. Ended up 3 guys with 4 fouls each, so that played out in the free throws where Florida did not have its best day. Some other stuff. Turnovers. Florida turned it over 12 times. Connecticut turned it over 6 times, and there were just some things like the Clayton play at the end where he fouls Liam McNeely, bumps him.
Yeah.
And I get it was just kind of an aggressive play in the spur of the moment, but you got to be a little smarter than that. Like at that point, it was a 5-point game. So like one of your only realistic scenarios, and it's a long shot for Connecticut to win, is for a clock stoppage and free throws, which that's set up. But here's what I'm getting at. It wasn't Florida's best day. It played a team that has been there and done that and is still extremely talented, that if you call it on the wrong day, could beat you, which I feel like that was at least in the category of catching Connecticut on the wrong day. They still won the game. That's what great teams do.
It's almost as if there's a phrase for this, as everyone weighing in on. It's almost as if survive and advance is the best way to describe this tournament. No Big Gator EJ up there. Survival in all caps. As Spencer brings up, as Brian brings up, that's what it's all about. You survive and advance, and I think we knew coming into this it was going to be one where if they got the UConn matchup, all the pressure is on Florida. We said it's wild to think that the pressure would not be on the defending back-to-back national champions. The pressure was going to be on the team that everyone had started to compare to UConn and say, man, they look like UConn looked when they started steamrolling everybody. And so it's just, it's one of those weird dynamics that you had in play here. And as you started to see Florida missed some free throws, those kind of things. Like, you're just thinking, oh boy, is this going to be what we look back on and say, all right, well, the one thing, and it wasn't even like it was a weakness, but the one thing we were just saying, close game, got to make free throws, and they didn't. UConn found their edge again and won. No, like it was Walter Clayton stepping up, Martin stepped up, Richard stepped up, and it was brought up too. The good thing with a couple of those free throw misses was that they got a couple offensive rebounds. And, obviously Florida's been fantastic at that all season long. So just having a couple of those extra opportunities, they had 12. Listen, I thought UConn, for a large portion of this game, was the aggressor. Like, I thought the physicality bothered Florida a bit. UConn was just all up in them. They were forcing them to take some tough shots. With these guards, though, they still hit some tough shots. But I think especially, in the front court, when you look at the way some of that played out, obviously, a lot of rebounds to go around for the big guys, but I think you were definitely seeing that UConn was pretty aggressive here and they were very physical. And at times, that just sort of, I think, bothered Florida a little bit, especially, and I think when you add that pressure onto it as well. But, still the big guys, I think, are not going to get a lot of the attention here, but they got some big rebounds in this game. And I think that was, again, something that stood out and had to, because we knew this was going to, like, I'm telling you, I knew this would be one of those situations where you just figured UConn would play well here. And they did, but credit to the Gators.
Well, and this is probably one of these days where if you're Florida, you're probably a little bit grateful that you played at Tennessee twice. You played some other teams in this league that play physical and prepared you for this kind of game.
Yeah.
As Arkansas had to have been yesterday.
Yeah, I think so. This is where, like, the SEC prepares you for something like this. Yeah, like, I think these kind of games where, again, like you saw right from the jump, like the way UConn was coming out early on, the way they were guarding Florida. Again, I just think there was, and we expect that too. You've seen UConn over the past couple of years when they've made this run, like they're a team that doesn't mind getting all up in you and defending that way. They don't forcing a lot of turnovers. We said that in the preview, but still, I mean, they're not going to allow you easy shots. And Florida had to work for a lot of stuff that they got in this game. And that's where too the fouls came in, where it's just like, all right, it's probably wasn't the worst move for UConn to say, well, we're just gonna foul you maybe. We're not gonna give you anything easy. And again, 22 of 34, Florida finishes at the free throw line. So that's just the one thing, you got to clean up, because you're going to play some close games probably the rest of the way. Although maybe you don't. I don't know. I think Maryland would be a tough matchup, and we'll see if that's how it plays out. But again, I think if you're Florida, just taking this game, exhale. I still feel like this may wind up being their toughest game on the way to the Final Four. We'll find out though. Because we always kind of see how, a team responds after a game like this. You're the number one seed. You come out, you rally, you get the win. Now you get several days off, and it's sort of like a reset again, where it's like, all right, now let's just flush anything we did bad, we felt like in this game. Let's get that out of the way. And then now let's just, let's go on to the next matchup. So.
Yeah, and here's another thing. Speaking of teams not getting their best day, and again, credit to UConn for this, but Condon, Chinyelu, Howe, and Hanlogton, I don't think anybody shut them down. No, they did do some things out, rebounding 40-35, but they didn't block a shot. They combined to score, 19 points on, 13 shots. They hit 4 field goals from the floor. Like, again, we've talked about how I don't know that anybody in the country has got a better 4-man front court rotation than what Florida's got. And that got shut down. I'm going to guess nobody shut Florida down like that all year. And yet Florida still won, which is the reason we picked them. At least, did you pick them before the tournament? That was my champion. Did you go there, or did you go Houston or Duke?
I picked Duke, and Florida in the championship. I picked Duke because I said I thought they had the easier path. Like I said, this was the game that just terrified me for Florida.
Yeah,
and I did not go as far as ever picking UConn in the bracket or previews we did, but this was terrifying, and this was the one that I was like so so nervous about, because I just did not. You just knew that UConn was gonna rise to the occasion. Different roster, understand all that, but you just felt like that experience for some of those guys in this tournament these past couple of years, like it just had one of those feels of one of those games. But now it's like we said. I mean, I'll bring up some of the super chats here. You know, Josh, $5 super chat. Thinks Florida rolls to the Final Four now. The matchup against Maryland, Texas Tech, or Arkansas all set up well. Yeah, of course, Colorado State's still in that mix too, but I do think of those matchups, you know, you feel like Florida matches up pretty well. Maryland's the one that I would keep an eye on if they were to beat Colorado State.
Yeah.
That's not knocking Arkansas either. By the way, if Arkansas makes a run to the Elite Eight and it's Florida Arkansas, throw out everything we saw the last time these two teams played. It's a much different dynamic if that's the matchup. But, you know, again, I'm not saying the next game is going to be easy against Maryland. I wouldn't completely classify that in that, you know, spot just yet either. So, but yeah, when you have Walter Clayton, makes things a little bit easier. Shout out to Zach here, $10 super chat. Florida built to come back in games because of elite ball pressure defense, the offensive rebounding, and the guard play. UConn didn't hit enough shots. Yeah, I mean, UConn went cold at the wrong time. And Florida does all those things well. And that's why it would have been a shame to lose the game basically on missed free throws, because they were pretty good in those areas, and getting some of those extra opportunities off of missed free throws was a nice thing to have too there for that. So, by the way, Josh going to weigh in one more time, $5 super chat. Says the country's national nightmare is over. Dan Hurley humbled. That's Josh's national nightmare for the country. So
yeah, the best coach in the game is out of the tournament now. So there's that.
They had a pretty good run. We can all think what we want about this, but they had a pretty good run the past couple of years. Let's not act like they didn't. So we'll see if the Gators can have their own run here as they march on to the Sweet 16, number 4 for the SEC. Hopefully that's not what it stops at. But 3 more to go today. So
yeah, I mean, again, just so much margin of error for this team, and it needed every bit of it today. But I think that the Maryland matchup is where I wanted to flip next. Speaking of elite front courts, Derek Queen, Julian Reese would certainly qualify for that. I think that is one thing that's a little scary, is that what one of Florida's strengths is the interior play, and I think there's a chance that, you know, we've seen the blueprint a little bit for neutralizing that today. Still think they win, but yeah.
If it is Maryland, something to keep in mind here, and I know we'll bring this up in the preview, but I had to bring this up because I looked at it the other day, actually, as I was trying to fill out my bracket. Maryland has 8 losses this year. Okay? 8. They're 26-8 right now. Guess how many times they've lost by more than 5 points?
I'm not going to look, but they're 11 in Ken Palm, which means that's a really low number.
They've lost by more than 5 points once, when they lost by 6 points at Washington on January 2nd. They lost by 4 to Marquette, 5 to Purdue. By the way, that was on the road. 6 at Washington, 4 at Oregon, 2 at Northwestern in overtime, 3 at Ohio State, 3 at home to Michigan State, and 1 to Michigan in the Big Ten tournament. Like, this is where free throws come in. And you want to know why I'm nervous about the Gators? It's free throws, because it's probably going to be a close game. So you got to be able to knock down your free throws. But that is the one that is. Like I said, I think you'll see Florida play better overall than they did today. But it doesn't necessarily just mean it's cruise control. But I think if they play well and Maryland plays well, I still think Florida wins that game. But, it's not going to be easy, but this was the one that I thought may wind up being the toughest. We'll find out, though. So, again, like I said, we're saying that, but Colorado State could beat Maryland, and that could change. And we're not going to sit there and, deny the Rams if they were to get to the spot, because, I mean, keep in mind, too, that's a team that hasn't lost since February 11th. So, yeah, fun game. Looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I am, too. Any more parting thoughts on Florida's win over Connecticut, or looking ahead, anything in that territory?
Well, I just, Raftery said it on commentary. All the guys said it, I think. But this is, I think, the kind of game, if Florida winds up making a run, this is the one you look back on and say, all right, that was sort of the game where you learned something about yourself. Because Florida's not found themselves in that position a lot. Now, you could say the Georgia game, but that was an extreme, right? They were down 26 like they were. It may have felt like it at times, but like they weren't. And so we've seen this team respond a lot this season when they do get in these kind of scenarios, especially, again, I know they lost the Georgia game, but they responded, wound up getting a lead in that game towards the end, just wasn't meant to be. So I think that is, something too, where they are going to learn from this. And I think just sort of getting that exhale moment now to be like, all right, we got past this. Certainly some things we can do better, but we're still a number 1 seed for a reason. And they're still playing like, and that's where I think it's going to be like, okay, well, the number 1 seed only beat the number 8 by 2 points. But this was not, as we said, this was not going to be your traditional 1 versus 8 based on the kind of psyche of playing the defending national champions back to back, and then just, having that pressure on you as the number 1 seed. Like, I didn't think this was going to be one where Florida was just going to roll through UConn. Never felt that way. And so now we see how they, again, sort of respond, figure out the matchup here moving forward and all that. So Florida fans, you tell us, I know you're in the chat, who would you rather play? Would you rather play Maryland or would you rather play Colorado State? We asked this about everybody who's advanced so far. Who do you want to get? I think I know what your answer is going to be, but some of you may be like, hey, maybe not. So, tell us who you want. Do you want Maryland? Do you want Colorado State? How do you see it playing out? But at least we know, Chris, in San Francisco, there will be 2 SEC teams sitting there with the possibility to advance. Florida and Arkansas. Gators versus TBD. Arkansas versus Texas Tech. So, should be fun out west coming up next week.
Chad getting a little chippy today.
You know what? I don't really know. I mean, listen, I don't have time to deal with the chat today. We're down a man, as you know. Our guy Max Barr doesn't have a voice. He's sick. So if you guys want to play that game, just come on. Like we're talking basketball today. I get it. You all have different teams you support, but yeah, we're not going to play around out. So I'm going to get Max Barr the spam button from Max Barr. I'll have to go find it from him. But yeah,
let's bring Sam Smith in and monitor the chat.
Yeah, that would be a great idea. I'm sure that will not happen. So yeah, Josh going to go $2 to knock Maryland and say they're a 5-deep team, 0 bench. Well, again, that's the case, but I still think they're pretty good. But we'll see. We'll see if that's the matchup we get. By the way, there was some news that broke as we were watching that Florida game. We all kind of expected this. Carter asked who are the candidates for the Texas job with the Rodney Terry firing official. Yeah, I think that is that's something we all sort of expected. We kind of talked about it towards the end of the season. It really didn't matter if they made the tournament or not. I just didn't think it was going to change a whole lot. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm sure you saw some of the candidates already thrown out there. Sean Miller was mentioned by John Rothstein. That's going to be one of the top candidates. And yeah, so I think that's kind of where we are on that. And we'll look more into that again. It's just sort of, as of right now, I haven't even had a second thought on it. I've been thinking about these games more than anything else. So, I think Sean Miller will be high on that list for obvious reasons. I feel like
they've gone that route once with the mid-major that didn't work out.
Yeah, but Sean Miller is different.
Well, that's true.
He's not
win
your
some games in Arizona.
Mid-major coach. Yeah, I was going to say.
I'll take a mulligan on that one.
I get it. There's a lot going on, but
I don't know where my head was when I said that.
Well, again, we don't always remember everything. But
no, that one was pretty obvious, though.
That's fine.
Yeah,
we've all had those. But yeah, I think he will make a lot of sense. You know what's going to happen too. There are going to be SEC names bantered about. It happens every time Texas opens up. I feel like. So don't be surprised if you hear that same thing, because Texas obviously has the money and the resources to go out and pay. But yeah, I think he will be. He would obviously be one of the top options. I think Sean Miller. So Josh says Sean Moe doesn't want the SEC smoke. $2 super chat.
Oh, Josh is bringing it today.
Josh is ready to go. His Vols have advanced to the Sweet 16. Josh is just sitting back and enjoying himself. So, yeah.
I'm sure all the SEC coaches are thinking, yeah, that's what we need is another heavyweight Hall of Fame type to join the league.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think he would do a great job there. I feel confident in saying that. So he would do a really good job. I do believe that. And so we all know kind of how things ended for him at Arizona and all that, but we just saw again what they did with Xavier and everything. I think he would be a really good choice there. But again, like I remember, whoever gets this job, man, I mean, look at the SEC you're entering, right? Look at the state of SEC basketball right now. So, yeah, that's where we are. So,
sidebar, because you mentioned him earlier, you Bill Raftery guy?
Yeah, who's not?
Yeah, I'm just asking. I mean, somebody like I looked up one time, like, because I'm thinking like, who's the most likable announcer ever? I'm thinking it's probably Vin Scully. And there's like a whole blog or something dedicated to why Vin Scully's overrated. So like there's somebody that hates everybody, but I've been a Raftery fan for as long as I've been a college basketball fan. I really enjoy hearing him call these games because we didn't get that all year for the most part.
Yeah. I still love him.
Yeah.
Raftery's he's one of the best. So, yeah, no doubt. All right, our thoughts on the Gators. Again, we will be back in a little bit as we will look at all the other games on the day. Again, we haven't really decided yet how we're going to situate you have 3 games that are kind of in a similar window, although Kentucky will finish. We'll go live after Kentucky, Illinois, but Alabama will be maybe in the second half by then. So we'll kind of have to play it by ear and see how we're going to do this. We may end up tying the Alabama one into the end of the Kentucky one. We'll just have to see how the games are going. Then, of course, the last game is Iowa State and Ole Miss. I think that's like a 6:45 p.m. tip Central Time. So, yeah, I think that's kind of our setup on that. So that's our plan for everything the rest of the day, just like we did yesterday. And it's nice not to have the 9 p.m. start for a game tonight. So, yeah. By the way, we're asked to our thoughts on Baylor and Duke. I think Duke.
Jeremy Roach revenge game.
I think Duke rolls them.
Yeah, I do too.
This is kind of not the same situation, but like this isn't your usual. I mean, Baylor's got some guys. We said they got some experience on that team in terms of guys who have played in some big games, but I just think Duke's on another level right now. So,
yeah.
Yeah, Spencer, great question. What's Max thinking? Not allowed to get sick during the tournament. No. Listen, our man, you heard him in the previews we did yesterday. The voice was pretty much almost gone then, so we're not gonna throw Max in here on a sick, no voice situation. So, not gonna do that. So, there you have it. All right, we're out of here. We appreciate it, guys. Well, I see it. $5 super chat from Quinn. It's about Florida, and we're just gonna. I think what we're gonna have to do, guys, and I don't want to do this, but we don't have time to monitor the chat today. So we're either just gonna have to make this like members only for the chat, and we don't want to do that, but like if we get to that point, we will. We're not gonna cut the chat off altogether. We wouldn't do that to you guys, but if we have to get to that point, then that may be what we do. So, because we don't have the spam man. The spam button is not currently located. Josh is like, hang on a second. I'm not a member. Well, Josh, now you got a little incentive, don't you? No, I'm just kidding. No. All right.
Look, most of the time our chat is really good. I think one of the things I like about this channel is we've got a very unusually kind and decent audience for, frankly, what is anything on social media today. But I think tempers may have been running a little high today.
Well, listen, I know Chris says
we'll give this one a mulligan.
Okay, but Chris is saying the members are the ones doing it. But here's the thing, Chris: if we narrow it down, then we have better eyes on it. because there's just so many chats coming in. We can't have an eyes on everything.
We're trying to cover and talk basketball intelligently. Let me just let you in behind the scenes. Usually when Blake's talking, I'm furiously, searching Ken Palm or schedules or something to fact check something or, get to the next thing. And so, I mean, there are days that people could be setting off nukes in the chat and I wouldn't know it. And that's just the way it is when you're doing a 2-man show. But anyway,
we would catch that, but
we might catch that, but
nonetheless, anyways, that's how it sets up. So again, we may have to go that route the rest of the day, but we'll see how it works. We appreciate you guys as always. Lots of fun stuff. The channel. Brian thinks I'm up for the Texas job. Brian, let me tell you with 100% certainty, I'm not up for the Texas job in more ways than one. Like, I'm not going to get an interview, and I would not be up for that job. I don't think I would do well as the head coach of the Texas Longhorns. So, just going to be honest with you. But anyways, all right. We'll be back after Kentucky, Illinois.
Yeah.
Little break here. Little break.
Little cooling off period.
It's just
send a couple guys to the penalty box. Let them think about it a minute. Not really.
I mean, it is what.
Everybody has a day.
That's fine.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Have a good rest of your afternoon. Be kind to one another. God bless you. For Blake Lovell, I'm Chris Lee. We'll see you again soon.